This is Erikson, the psychosocial theory of human development, and my name is Robert Benson. Erikson's early childhood. Erik Erikson was born on June 15th in 1902. He was born in Frankfurt, Germany, to his Jewish mother, Carla Abrahamson. Erik was raised solely by his mother before she married a physician in his early life named Dr. Theodore Hamburger. Erikson did not know that Hamburger was not his biological father for many years. His early childhood experience with this triggered his interest in the formation of identity. He was confused from an early age about who he was. His interest in identity, was further developed on his experiences throughout school. Early in school, he stood out amongst the other kids in his Jewish temple school. He was rejected at grammar school because of his Jewish background, and this continued to be an influence through his life, which fueled his interest in identity formation. His early professional life, Erikson never received a formal degree. He studied at Das Humanistische Gymnasium, in which he primarily interested in history, Latin, and art. He spent a short period of time in art school before he dropped out. He then traveled to Europe with his friends, contemplating his identity. He was still confused about who he was at this time. And with an invitation from a friend, Erikson started his professional career teaching at a progressive school. Anna Froude, which was a friend of Dorothy Burlingham, who had created the school, noticed Erikson's sympathetic bond with children, and she encouraged him to formally study psychoanalysis. Erikson stated that this gave him self-awareness, and it led me not to fear being myself, is what he said. Sorry. While at the school, he met his future wife named Joanne Serson. She worked at the same school he did. They were later married in 1930. They went on to have 3 children. They moved to the United States in 1933. Erikson was offered a teaching position at Harvard Medical School. While he was at Harvard Medical School, he also had a private practice in child psychoanalysis. Going from there, we have his career. After taking the position at Harvard Medical School, he changed his last name from Hamburger to Erikson. This kind of forced his own identity, allowed him to kind of restart as he moved into the U.S., which was a big change. While in the U.S., he held many teaching positions at many different universities, a few of them being the University of California, Berkeley, Yale, the San Francisco Psychoanalytic Institute, Austin Riggs Center, and the Center for Advanced Studies of Behavioral Sciences. Throughout his career, Erikson published a number of books in regards to his research and his theories. One of his books was named Gandhi's Truth. This book was actually awarded a Pulitzer Prize and National Book Award. And now looking back on it, he is now known as the father of psychosocial development. Erikson's theory, or theories, it's really one theory, but it's made up of 8 stages. So his theory of psychosocial development is centered around a series of 8 stages known as the epigenetic principle. Erikson built off his mentor Sigmund Freud's psychosexual theory. He described this development throughout the entire lifespan, as Freud's theory did not, kind of stopped, and this led Erikson to kind of build off of that. The first stage is known as trust versus mistrust. This stage occurs during the age of birth and 1.5 years old. The stage is centered on developing a sense of trust in caregivers and the world. Um, Stage 2 is autonomy versus shame and doubt. This occurs during 18 months to 3 years of age. This involves gaining a sense of independence and personal control, which 3 years of age you wouldn't think of personal control, but that is when you gain the sense of it and independence. Theories continued. Stage 3 is the initiative versus guilt. This stage occurs during the ages of 3 to 6. And during the age of 3 to 6, this is when children begin to explore the environment and gain more control over their choices. They kind of make their own choices as far as what they want to do. Kind of explore around maybe the neighborhood or whatever that may be. And by doing this, children develop a sense of purpose. Stage 4 is industry versus inferiority. This occurs during ages 6 to 12. This focuses mainly on developing a sense of personal pride and accomplishment. When you're 6 years old to 12 years old, that's when you're going home telling mom, hey, I had an A on the test. Hey, I did this at PE. Hey, I learned this at school. Just kind of learn how to be proud of yourself. I think that's a big stage, in my opinion, anyways. Stage 5 is identity versus confusion. And this was big in Erikson developing his theory because this is really when he found himself. Because he didn't know who his father was. He didn't even really know that his stepfather was not his biological father until later on. So I think this stage was really big in his theory, and I think it's actually very factual. This occurs during the teen years, so 13 to 19 years of age. This period focuses on developing a sense of identity and fidelity. It says those who fail this stage are left with confusion and their role in the world. Because this is when you kind of get out on your own, or and you're not really sure what your purpose is. And this is kind of where you find it. And if you fail, you're left with confusion. So it's really just finding your identity. Stage 6 is intimacy versus isolation. Stage 6 occurs during early adulthood era. And this is all about forging or creating relationships with others, such as like lasting, committed, and nurturing relationships. I would say this is more like when you find who you want to marry. Find friends that are going to be your friends forever. And it kind of leads you into stage 7, which is generativity, versus stagnation. This occurs during the middle adulthood era. And this is when you really become concerned because you're contributing to society and you're trying to leave your mark on the world. This is the stage where you raise a family and have a career or start a career. Really, I think of this stage as about 22. I think of stage 6 as kind of a small, short stage, which I think these stages can go hand in hand with each other, I think, depending on, your intimacy and isolation. But the final stage, stage 8, integrity versus despair. The final stage takes place in late adulthood. This is when you really reflect back on your life. You look back at what you've done. You hope that you don't regret anything. Those who look back with satisfaction develop integrity and wisdom. But those who are left with regrets experience despair. And Erikson's influencer, as I said his name earlier, his main influencer was Sigmund Freud. He was the father of psychoanalysis. Erikson studied Freud's work and based his theory off of Freud's theory of psychosexual development. He studied his work for many years, and he expanded from it. He created his own psychosocial development theory based on Sigmund Freud's theory, and just kind of used it as a building block and made his own. His late life Right here I have in quotations. This is reported by the New York Times Magazine on May 13th, 1994. Erik H. Erikson, the psychoanalyst who profoundly reshaped views of human development, died yesterday at the Rosewood Manor Nursing Home in Harwich, Massachusetts, at the age of 91. He came down with a brief illness, which led him to pass away. Sue Erikson, his daughter, is the one that reported it to New York Times Magazine. I mean, I kind of added this in here because his theory really meant a lot for um, just the development of life. And I said that his theories would go on to live forever. I should have edited it and said his theories will go on to live forever, because they're not going to end. Right here, I wanted to end on a quote. It says, "Hope is both the earliest and most indispensable virtue inherent in the state of being alive. If life is to be sustained, hope must remain. Even where confidence is wounded, trust is impaired." And that is going to wrap